getting into the industry by way of employment. Now, what are we going to do to change that? Number one, we must redesign our training program to fit into the demand of that opportunity. And I know there's quite some work that was done previously and continues to be done, but we may need to have a conversation. And if approved, I'm going to be running back quickly to this august house to engage honorable members on realigning the policies around training to be able to fit the demands. And I pick particular example. If you train someone to board a vessel, how you earn or how you get opportunity to be employed is almost similar to that of a pilot. So even as we see today, we have probably a good standard of training issued or undertaken at the Bandari Maritime Academy. But Mr. Speaker, everybody that graduates from Bandari Academy does not automatically qualify to get a job because they don't have something called sea time. They don't have sea time. They have no avenues to get sea time. So that for me is a matter of urgent intervention to ensure we combine our training with sea time, even if it's just basic. Nobody will employ you if you have never been on board a sea. So that is one area of policy realignment that I'm going to have to engage this Honorable House. The other important area, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the statistics today, countries like Liberia are carrying 100 or plus more folds of their flag in vessels. We in Kenya, we're just about 5. From what I've heard from private sector, I've engaged the shipping industry, and I have been told, Mr. Speaker, the vessels that are carrying our flag are just about 5. What this therefore means is that our young people cannot get an opportunity because there is no level playing field. What do we need to do? Look at the policies. What is Liberia doing that is right that we can't do? What is it? Because we have so many vessels calling into our ships. What a local flag means, Your Excellency, is that the revenues generated, first of all, from the vessel will land in Kenya. Priority in terms of job opportunities will be for Kenyans. And opportunities to even design some internship program for attaining sea time. It is easier to take to Kenyan companies, and I'm going to do that. I think, Mr. Speaker, and I'm clear about it. Let me say I'm clear about it. If you approve my nomination, I will hit the ground running. It certainly shall not be business as usual. It will not, because I see. And by the way, Mr. Speaker, so that I give you the context on how and why it is urgent that we quickly realign policies that conform to the needs, it is because seafarer, by all standards, qualifies to be a prestigious job. There's no seafarer, at whatever cadre, there's nobody who earns less than $1,000. So, Mr. Speaker, I'll quickly run. The other question is on the fishing folk, and Mr. Junet, Honorable Junet, talked particularly on the lake areas, and I'm imagining he's looked at the demography well, because I was just looking at some statistics. And I looked lake areas from Muhuru Bay, you pass Siaya into Soiport, Sioport in Busia. And the numbers that are produced, nothing justifies that our neighboring countries are processing more. Understood that they may have a lot of, the area might be wider, but they're processing 100-folds more, particularly for export. What do we need to do? And I've seen this problem, for example, in the fisher folk. and artisan fishermen in the coastal region, from Kiunga to Lunga Lunga. And government has put some effort. Let me just acknowledge. Government so far has given boats and some storage facility. And they're building landing sites that are some complete and some yet to be complete. But that alone doesn't solve the issue. There is the issue of capacity building. These fisher folks, these artisan fishermen and women should be trained. Should be trained in how many fronts? One, processing, basic business skills, storage, and value addition. Mr. Speaker, growing up in Mombasa, I used to see a company that used to be called Wananchi Marine. That company was employing on a daily basis not less than 3,000 women to do fish processing. But as we sit here today, Mr. Speaker, there is no single factory that I can directly point at that does the same. And it's going to be my business. Number one, to create a lucrative environment for investment. You have to combine private sector investment, government support, and people's participation. One is, for example, if we want to help the fisher folks and fishermen generally, we must develop strategy like creating collection points. And I tell you, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, why I say that, because one boat goes out, comes with possibly 20 kilos, and they are likely to be possibly around maybe 100 boats of such capacity. But everyone who comes don't call in into the same landing site. What do? They find means to buy ice blocks and store. But imagine if we put them in a cooperative, manage them and organize them, train them. You arrange collection points. Why we don't export our fish very well is because we don't consolidate it. We don't consolidate our catch. So for me, I should have a truck picking from Kiunga into Owen Bay's constituency, Owen Bay's into Mombasa, into Kwale and Shimoni. Consolidate it so we bring adequate catch that will qualify for even export market. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Ichung'wah talked about on restoration programs of quarries. There is a law in place, but it's not enforced. What do I think needs to be done? Number one, we must create synergies with county governments. Why do I say so? They are beneficiary of the royalties. We must train and encourage the Kenyan people to abide to the required environmental standards. Number three, we must work on our enforcement, and this will require a multi-sectoral approach that I'm probably going to initiate. And maybe on the policy issue is that we may consider requiring or requesting when you are licensed to mine, so that we are assured you will actually work on restoration, create a bond, a surety bond, whether by way of bank guarantee or whatever formula that works, so that you deposit it in government, a similar amount or an estimated amount. So if you don't restore the site that you've mined our geological wealth from, we have bonded you. So you just don't walk scot-free. Mr. Speaker,
you've answered all the questions.
I think I have answered all the questions.
Good.
I thank you.
Those who have never heard of Ali Mazrui, I encourage you to read a few of his books. Africans, A Triple Heritage, Africa's International Relations, and Africans from Slave Ship to Spaceship.
Mr. Speaker, if you have some extra copies, I'm going to pick some from you.
Pardon?
If you have some extra copies, I'll pick some from you. If you've read, unless you're collecting them.
I'll share with you. Naisula?
Thank you, Chairman. To the nominee, during your preamble, you thanked His Excellency the President for nominating you, and that is why you're before this committee. You are in public having said, and I quote you, "I don't ever dream of engaging with Ruto. Mimi niongee na Ruto, niongee na Ruto nini?" I want to put it to you that if this committee nominates you and the National Assembly approves you, you'll be sitting in a cabinet where His Excellency the President will be chairing. I would like to know whether mutaongea nini kwa hiyo cabinet. But that's beside the point. I want to get to the real issues, but that's also a very valid question because it will be important to know how you will engage as the minister, if approved, cabinet secretary, and with His Excellency the President. Now, there is tax exemption on exploration and accumulation of exploration expenses for offset against income upon full commercialization. What I would like to know is, do you think exemption should be tied to certain activities and for certain duration of time? There are people who are exploring in this country in perpetuity for 30, 40 years just so that there is tax exempt. And I suspect they've actually explored and they've gotten the gemstones or whatever they're exploring, but because of the exempt, they continue to say they're exploring. To my last question, the Mining Act prohibits civil servants from dealing with minerals. According to Article 81 of the Mining Act, no person, whether civil or military, and serving in government is allowed to directly or indirectly acquire or hold any right or interest under any prospecting right. Despite this provision, high-ranking government officials, public officers, state officers, and civil servants are involved in mining. And I'm sure some of them have started looking for you since you were nominated. What mechanisms and plans will you put in place to ensure that revenues from gemstone mining do not end up in the pockets of cartels without disclosure? Actually, I thought cartels are only in agriculture, health. I've come to realize during this appointments committee, cartels are everywhere, including mining. And how do you intend to protect and shield communities from unscrupulous miners and cartels?
Nelson Koech.
Mine also was a quick one too, on the same gemstone. Late last year, the president had this launched, it's called a Voi Gemstone Value Addition Center. It is ill-equipped, nominee. I don't know what you will do to make sure that there is value for money, and the small-scale miners are also able to be, are able to sell their mines in Voi Additional Center, Gemstone Additional Center. Number two is the mining law sets up several mechanisms which Kenyans can enjoy direct benefits from minerals. That is, for every sale of mineral, proportion of value of mineral is paid to the government as royalty, which is shared between national and county government and mining communities in the ratio of 70, 20 to 10, respectively. How then will you do differently to ensure the same is adhered to mining communities and county benefits?
Nominee.
Honorable Naisula, you talked about exploration, but my research tells me, and I'm yet to get a detailed brief from the ministry, that you're imagining there are people doing exploration for 30 years. There are people doing prospecting for 40 years. How that makes sense, I have no idea. Whether it happens anywhere in the world, certainly it cannot be. How do you prospect for 40 years? So we need to quickly relook into our policy, Mr. Speaker. We can't as a country. And this explains why mining GDP's contribution is under 1%. It can't continue like this. It can't continue. And Honorable Naisula, you are very right. If you thought you saw cartels, I've come to learn within this short period of time that I've been nominated, there are greater cartels in the mining industry. And Mr. Speaker, if you approve me, that is where I begin. Remove the cartels, remove the brokers. Mining industry in Kenya cannot be a market of speculators. Mr. Speaker, I've also learned that before someone hits the ground, you'll find instances where a company has exchanged hands more than 10 times. Someone has gone, applied for a license, given a license, sold it to the speaker, then sold it to Naisula, then sold it to Owen, then sold it to some farm in Canada, that one sells to China. All that time that they're speculating and gaining profits, the Kenyan people are losing. They are losing. It's only that I am, and this is a task I'm going to take, because it looks like Kenyan population really do not have an idea of what geological minerals may be in the country. They must get involved, and I'll take it upon me to ensure they get involved. So I identify completely with your sentiments, Honorable Naisula, and this is an urgent matter that must be discussed and be realigned in a manner that works and defeats those cartels. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Naisula told me nitaongea na.
You don't have to answer that. Only fools don't change their minds.
I was going to say it in Kiswahili.
Go on and answer the other question.
Wapumbavu tu ndo wabadilishe mawazo.
There's a question on communities.
Yeah, I'm coming to that.
Yes.
Number one, I've already picked an issue on, for example, timely disbursement of royalties. Mr. Speaker, I was talking to some people from Taita Taveta County, some community, who told me they have not received their share of royalties on a certain mine for the last 7 years. That can't work. What we need to quickly do is to ensure we create systems that function. And number one priority is that the Kenyan people primarily should be priority in terms of receiving their royalties and benefits. Mr. Speaker, we also have to have a conversation. I am looking forward, for example, to quickly engage the counties. The counties, according to the current law, receive a good chunk of royalties. Maybe we may need to look at our legal framework on how we can also cushion the communities in the counties by ensuring that we maybe ring fence some of the resources to development. Why do I say this, Mr. Speaker? You know very well. Geological minerals do get depleted. There are generations that will come many, many years after us, and this country must have something to show. We can't, it just can't be a story that Kenya had this and there's nothing to show. So, Mr. Speaker, I am going to engage and create working synergies with the counties and formulate, create a framework that is efficient in disbursing royalties. And also, if I go a step further, these communities must be organized. We must organize them. We must encourage them to get into cooperatives. We must encourage them in some instances. And I like that question because it gives me an opportunity to address something that we call back home as ancestral interests. Many of us, our populations, and it's not only in the coastal region, as squatters, Mr. Speaker. I saw that during the SGR. When they were constructing the SGR, Mr. Speaker, many people were compensated, but the title holders and the residents of certain areas were completely ignored. So there are certain regulations or laws that we must, and I'd be happy to come and engage the community to see how we can improve on them. Mr. Speaker, on Honorable Koech, I haven't seen the Gemstone Center at Voi, but I'm looking forward to see it. But what I think the mining industry needs to do is to focus on private sector investment. Government should not be in the business of competing with its citizens. So there has to be concerted effort and specific focus to encourage private sector investment. Why do I say so, Honorable Koech? Because they will meet the global standards. I am not sure whether the Gemstone Center in Voi is properly equipped to test and process what they get. That is an urgent business for me. And I'm going to look into it as soon as I have an opportunity of possibly if this honorable committee approves me. So that we even are able to for value addition and what should be put in the market and what values. And I have seen it. I've seen people from Voi coming into Mombasa with a small packet of many, many gemstones and almost sell them at wholesale price. Someone else picks them up, some foreigner will pick it up, go to Hong Kong, go to Thailand, and make double or triple the money that, that Kenyan ordinary man would. So I will look into that as a matter of urgency, Honorable Koech, and I'm hoping that I see the passion. We'll work together.
Posing, then Gikaria, then Emase. In that order. Take those three.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Joe, I hear you talk about policies and systems. Should you get the favor of the House, my proposal will be concentrate on the actions. If you live in these policies and systems, you will leave that office with systems and policies, having not even approved. So that's my advice. But my question is, the governors who have been ministers, Honorable Joe, have not gotten a good rating from where I sit. They have been accused of being desk ministers, governors, former governors. I don't know whether they got a lot of comfort when they were governors or they became two bosses when they were governors, and therefore they are not actually seen in the field. What will you convince this committee to believe in you? And particularly, I think I like the word you said, that what we lack is confidence. I think it's true, because I come from a mineral county, which is West Pokot. Confidence of investors coming to invest, and also confidence of the people accepting investors. What will you convince this committee, Honorable Joho, that you will be in these mineral counties in building confidence, and for both sides, the investors and, or you will go to Mombasa, because now blue economy in Mombasa, will you also be in mineral counties to build confidence? Thank you, Speaker.
Can I?
Three. Ikaria,
Thank you.
just record and answer them quickly in the order they came. Ikaria, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman.
Switch off your mic. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I think the exploration is something that the nominee has said is going